What's going on, motherfuckers? Welcome to the Crocs and Hot Pockets podcast. My name is Knackers, and today is Sunday, August 30th, 2020, and this is episode number 127. Tonight on the show, we have the one and only ErnstBlofield and the one and only EposVox. Ernst, how you doing tonight, dude?
Good. How are you, man?
Good. Good to see you, Mr. Epos. How are you?
Hey. I would say the one and only Knackers, but I just saw you on stream, and that was a different you than I'm seeing right now. So there's multiple of you, and I'm really concerned for the state of the world.
If there's more than one Knackers, we really have a problem. Also, I did have a lot more facial hair when I recorded that video than I do now. Actually, I think you took the facial hair that I had, because I don't think I've ever seen you.
Taped it on. No big deal.
I think there was wasn't there a Jackass where they got somebody to super glue somebody else's pubes to his face?
That's how I started my beard, my first beard.
Have you ever? I don't think I've ever seen you with a beard, Ernst.
It gets about maybe like an eighth of an inch longer than this, and then I trim it. So
and that's it.
That's it. That's all we do.
Are you always trimming, or are you actually shaving with like a razor?
No. It's always trimmed. Just a little electronic. Like I did this today, so this is like trimmed.
Fancy. I like it. Well, everybody, welcome to the show. Today's a little bit of a special episode where for the majority, or I would say the entirety of the podcast, we're going to be doing a Q&A. So it's really kind of centered around technology and streaming. You know, it's meant to give people a chance to ask these two gods regarding audio or video or tech, anything regarding technology and streaming. We wanted to give people an opportunity to throw up some lightsabers and ask some questions. So if any of you at any point have a question that you want to ask either of these guys, all you got to do is put !Q in chat, and the bot is going to grab those, and we'll just kind of go through them during the show. But first, we're going to do
screwdriver. Does that count as a lightsaber?
Yes, it does. Well, does it glow? You could grab one of those neon signs off.
Stick it in the right thing, it'll glow.
That's true.
Please don't stick it anywhere, okay? Ernst, we'll check in with you first, man. It's been probably less than a year since we had on the podcast, and I know your personal life has been hectic with the house and everything. So how's everything been since getting it all put back together?
Yeah, it's not quite back together. It's presentable, obviously, on stream, but it's not really quite together. So what you guys see, as typical with any sort of social media, is fake. There's boxes and shit all over the place that still have to be taken care of. So, did you get your floors redone in the entire place? Yeah, all new floors. Went to all tile, which is not the best for streaming platform, but it looks the best. It looks phenomenal. So all new floors, new bathroom, laundry room, remove popcorn ceiling type crap. Update everything. Painted all the It's just a lot of money went away really fast. So
I would imagine with the popcorn ceiling, did you have to do an asbestos abatement by any chance?
No.
Okay.
No. I mean, as long as it's, what they do is they squirt it with water and stuff, and then it falls down, and as long as it's wet, you don't have to worry about it anyway.
Wait, really?
Yeah, I mean, most contractors will just do it without worrying about it. As long as it's not airborne, which as long as it's wet, it's not airborne, so.
Okay, fair enough.
Despite coronavirus, of course.
Yeah, it's 2020 is the year of airborne shit. Epos, newfound father. I can only imagine what your life has been like recently. And, Ernst, your time is really valuable, but you're not looking after another human. So, Epos, I really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to come on here. So, how you been, man?
Of course, doing all right. Pretty exhausted. Things are redonkulous, but I'm here. I'm rocking the disheveled homeless person look, but it fits, so we're good.
I was when I went back to watch another portion of your OBS video today, I saw that somebody in the comments had said, "Welcome to Blue's Clues" because of the shirt that you had.
Yep.
I died, and I didn't notice it until somebody pointed it out. But as soon as somebody pointed it out, it made me laugh.
I didn't think about it until I had it like in person, and I was like, if I ever wanted to cosplay as him, I could probably get away with it. We've got the same size nose. I just have to like shave and cut my hair and
dye all your hair black too.
Yeah.
By the way, do you want to quick go over what video you put out today? Because I think it's a super important one because of the features that were released, and I would love you to spend like just a little time giving it some promo.
EOS 26. The release client dropped at like 9 p.m. last night without warning. Usually I get a little heads up. Someone just tweeted at me and was like, "Hey, have you looked at this yet?" And it was posted like 2 hours ago. I was like, "No." And then somehow I managed to put together a video last night. I don't remember it. They've got some really cool features, like one that should have been in the software almost 8 years ago, screenshotting within OBS. You can now just set up a hotkey and take a screenshot. You know, the thing every video creation software has pretty much. They've got cool stuff like virtual cam, which is what I'm using right now to switch scenes. I can pop in on my face. I've got a back cam, got an overhead cam, I've got a side cam. In case you wanted to see every angle of this. No,
we do.
You have a lower rear one we can get at.
I don't. That one's
Okay.
that one's a paid subscription tier.
Oh,
tier
that's
3.
the other site. Got it.
That's onlyfeet.com/EposVox.
So it's got virtual cam natively integrated because the plugin was a little kind of iffy sometimes. It's got, what else we got? We've got sRGB color support, which just means it's going to be a little bit more accurate and more cooperative with some browsers and your video editors and stuff. There's a lot. My brain is fried.
And if you want to check out more, you can
check out my video, youtube.com/EposVox. I explain and show everything, including the new source toolbar, which is like magic. But I'll let you discover that one for yourself because
something I didn't know that I needed. You know, as far as like, I consider myself an experienced OBS user, but there is a lot of things where I have a hard time thinking up what I would want. Right. That was something that I never even considered among all of the other things. And I'm like, you know what? That kind of would make a lot of things easier. So absolutely, I'm all about this.
And the form that I wanted in, they're still working on. But specifically, I wanted when you're editing like the brightness and contrast of a webcam or a capture card, those little UVC controls that pop up in a window, I want that as like a dock where I can see the full preview and just change it on the fly if I need to. They're still working on that. But this is kind of like the first step towards getting there. And then
can we just have one that's maybe just savable?
Right.
No, apparently that's too much to ask.
Yeah.
So we have to come up with a dock instead of just having saved settings.
I mean, that's Logitech's problem, not
True.
OBS's.
Yeah.
But
I feel like OBS could fix it. Like they have control.
Wizard, I've seen you code. I know what you're capable of.
Somebody's got to do it.
There was a app that I used to use called Cam Control that used to be compatible with Logitech C920s and C922s. Ever since upgrading, I think it was past Windows 10 1809 is when it like officially broke for me, and then it just stopped working, and that was like the saddest day.
I still think peak webcam usage was the original Logitech webcam software back in 2010 on Windows 7. You could do so much with it. The webcams saved when you rebooted your computer. You could save like completely lossless videos from some of their webcams. It did a whole lot of good stuff. And then they switched to Windows 10. They cut off all those features, and that software, you can still get it, and it still sort of works, but it's not the magic that it was back in the day.
I don't know. I'm having a really hard time picturing what that one looked. Logitech software is an absolute mess right now. Like if you go and try and find software from their website, it's like, I don't even know what I'm downloading. Do I use the cam? Do I use the Logitech software? Do I use the gaming soft? It's all way too much.
And they confused everyone because they keep adding like model numbers on top of webcams, even though they're the same camera. So there's like the C920 and then the C920X and then the C920 Pro Stream webcam, but they're all the same camera. They're just bundled with different crap. But everyone's like, oh, you need to review this one. And I'm like, it's the same thing.
This one can rotate
with a software key. Oh, yeah. The stream cam. Yep. I've got that over there. It is actually useful because it's USB-C. I didn't have any more USB ports, but I had a USB-C port. And so that is my turntable cam for when I'm streaming and I have vinyl going.
There you go.
But the problem is, since you can turn it, it auto rotates on its own since it's like facing down. And so I keep having to fight it. So,
oh, no.
Yeah.
So I have in the streaming PC in the kitchen has 4 Logitech C920s. And every time I'm like, man, I think I want to do a cooking stream. And then I remember that I have to go in and recolor grade all 4 cameras. I just end up not doing it. And for the most part, it doesn't bother me. And then when I go to like the money shot scene where I'm like, okay, the dish is done, time to present it. and it's like
purple
3,500 Kelvin white balance. Like, oh, I didn't know. I realized like I made a blueberry sandwich.
It's delicious, guys, I swear.
So sad. Like every time I'm like, guys, doesn't that look so good? And then I look at my OBS preview. I'm like, oh God, that looks fucking terrible. But
that is why I have spent way too much money on real cameras for my setup and then matching them. Because once they don't match, then that bothers you too. Once you start caring about it, and then.
Do you use a LUT for every single camera to keep it? Okay.
For these two, because I have currently my main and my side are A6400s, and so I originally just had one, so I just built a LUT based on the lighting and how I wanted it to look, and then slapped it on, and then just slap it on here as well, and it looks mostly identical.
Okay.
The webcams and stuff, they're not going to match, so I don't even bother.
Yeah.
And the back one, I freaking applied. I made it grayscale and applied scanline, so it looks like a security camera, because there's no way that would look presentable. But like this, it works. Yeah. Creativity.
It's an awesome looking. Is that another PlayStation neon light?
Yep. That one's not neon. That one's with LEDs. But yep.
Ernst, what camera are you using right now?
I hopped into the mirrorless world 4 years ago. So I don't think the 6000 series were out yet, or at least I didn't notice them. So I'm on the 5100.
Great one.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah. It was sort of the cheapest of it. I think it was like $650 at the time, but it was leaps and bounds cheaper than everything else. So I picked that up and struggled. I had tried out a long time back a bunch of these GoPro knockoffs from China, the Yees I tried all those to try to get them to work, and ended up spending probably $2,000 on them just to return them all back to Amazon, just because I hated them. Yep. And it was free. I basically tried it out, returned them all to Amazon, and then picked up. I was like, okay, I guess I'm spending $700 on a camera, and picked it up, and it's been awesome. I have one singular complaint about the camera, and that's I live by the beach. I don't have AC. When it gets hot, it overheats.
Oh.
And so about 3 or 4 weeks a year, it's prone to overheating. So but I could deal with that. So
do you have any window AC units in your house at all?
I do. I have the little not window, but I guess it's kind of window. They're like the rolling ones. You hook the tube up to the window, and then they're like floor standing. So it's like a floor standing fan window thing, but they're a pain in the ass to hook up. And if I have all my electricity on, they'll trip the breaker. So I don't like to have them on unless I know I'm just going to game, or I know that stuff is low.
I know that life. I don't know how we've finally gotten to a point where we don't trip as many. I think it's because my girlfriend removed the AC out of her room. For some reason, her room stays the coolest out of any rooms. My office is definitely like 10 to 15 degrees hotter than any other room in the house.
Same.
I had my door closed and I turned on my AC, and it took I'm in a 9x8 office. Very, very tiny space. It took maybe 50 minutes to go from 80 degrees to 73 degrees. Just like battling against the room, but it's just how it goes.
It's 86 in this room right now.
Oh my God. Are you dying, or are you used to it?
No, I'm used to it. I'm used to it because it's like beach air. It's not really all that humid that a lot of people have to deal with. So it's whatever. I'm not going to bitch about it.
That's true.
For 3 or 4 weeks a year, it gets warm in here. It'll get up into the 90s in this room alone. And this is I have no foam insulation on right now. I just removed it all for the move. So when that happens, when that goes on, it gets even hotter in here.
Oh my God.
For Lord.
I can see Epos's eyes light up.
I would die without central AC. It's already toasty with all this crap in here.
We have two window air conditioning units. The one's in my office, which the living room is right outside, and it's able to cool that if I leave my door open, and then one in the kitchen as well. But our house is only, I think it's just over 900 square feet, all on the same level, all pretty centrally located. So it works out. One thing I wanted to go over is we're looking for a sponsor for the podcast. It's Sunkist. If you're out there, we're looking to get the homie Epos sponsored. I'm gonna say it. Worshipped both of these guys. So years and years and years back.
I thought you were talking about World of Warships.
Oh no. Well, you guys are my worlds that I worship. Okay.
Aww, so cute.
Both just kind of searching around on YouTube, trying my absolute hardest to learn about audio. And I had came across both Epos and Ernst. Ernst, you had gotten shouted out by Cody on a YouTube video. And that's how I eventually got to your channel and started learning a lot. Epos, there's probably 90 different videos that led me to you and your channel. And just over time of interacting with these guys on Twitter and YouTube, got to know them. And these are two of like my favorite dudes to talk about audio with, because, or not just audio, but just streaming and tech in general, because neither of them sugarcoat things. They always seem to fact check. They are never just like retweeting articles after reading headlines and stuff. They both do their due diligence in trying to do good for the little guy in the streaming community. And that's something that I'm always drawn to when it comes to, finding people that I vibe with in the community. So it's always an honor and a pleasure to have you guys both on the podcast to be able to talk about this stuff. So thank you for being here and for donating your time. You'll pay for it later.
I thought you were paying us, so
I'm paying you in what do they call it? Exposure.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
I don't know if you know.
2020. That's actually a viable strat.
This podcast gets at least like 10 listens a month, so you're welcome. Just saying. Okay.
Thank you.
As we let a couple of questions roll in, I know we do have a few. I wanted to ask you a question about the questions that you get. And Ernst, I'm gonna start with you. What is the question that you get about audio or just streaming tech in general that like heats you up? Like what question, either after getting it so many times or being such a misconception in the space, drives you absolute mad?
What microphone should I get? What headset should I get is probably number one and number two on what I get asked the most. And my first follow-up question is always, what's your budget?
Yep.
Because that's number one on both of those scales. If someone says no budget, then I'm going to give them a handful of options in, what they want to do. Usually the second question I ask, I won't even give them an answer usually, but I'll say, what are you using it for? What do you want out of either of those? Because there's certain things like, if you need noise isolation, if you're going to be singing, there's different setups for everybody. So those are the two most common. And luckily most people just say, okay, and I want a mic for $200. I said, well, there's two routes you can go. You can get an XLR mic and an interface, assuming you don't have an interface, or what are you switching from type thing. And then lead them down that path. Or, is it purely just the mic for $200? You already have interface and everything else. Understand those type of things. And then headset is the headset one is really tough because I think there's this perception that I've seen, or maybe I'm interpreting it just from all the times I've been asked this question. There's this perception that like there's just one out there that's the best, and there isn't. It's preferential. The people love bass-driven headphones in some instances, and maybe people are using it to listen to music all the time, or maybe they don't want to have, their girlfriend or their wife or their sister or their mother hear the music coming out of their head, or like there's just so many different reasons subjectively that you would choose one over the other. So there's not a best. And there's this whiskey YouTuber that I follow that's always like, drink your whiskey how you like it and the way you like it. And that's kind of like microphones, and it's kind of like headphones. You have a very specific reason. That's what it doesn't irritate me to answer that question. It's just the one that I think people don't think about the reasons to have one microphone over another microphone versus a headset over something else. And that's the part that's challenging to get people to understand.
Okay. Epos, before I get your answer, do either of you recommend any headsets with mics attached to them?
For the ones built for actually having good mics, like the broadcast headsets from Sennheiser or Audio-Technica, but they're not going to sound great in the headphones because it's not what they're built for.
All right, and those start at like $200 or $300, don't they?
Yep, $200 for the cheapest one, I think.
Okay.
I think you can do something like getting a cheap headset and a mod mic will get you really far in life as well for pretty cheap. So, and there's honestly, there's certain headset mics that if you just place the mic in a certain position and lower the gain, a lot of times the issue is that the gain on the headset mics are so high versus where their voice is at. They put that mic right up on their mouth, and there's an inverse square law. But if you put it off to the side of your cheek and kind of crank the gain a little bit or manage the gain, you can get pretty decent audio. In fact, as much as I hate Triton, there's a Triton headset that's for consoles that if you put the mic about 4 inches off to the right side of your mouth, sounds incredible for being a headset mic.
Really?
Mm-hmm. Not heard that name in a long time.
I mean, that was 4 or 5 years ago, but at the time, it would have shit on Astro mics. I mean, and Astro was selling that mic and headset for $300 something. So
Triton
that's that.
Kama? Is that it?
I don't know what their latest one. I think it was like a 720 something back in the day.
I'm sorry. This is a total like non-audiophile reaction, but whenever I see square ear cups, I dismiss the headset almost immediately.
And that mic is what I started streaming on because it was like headset and mic through PS4, and if you set it, in the proper area off your mouth and get it to pick up right, pretty solid.
I started with a Logitech G930s, and those were so bad. It wasn't quite as bad as using a Logitech webcam as a microphone, but it was up there.
That's how I started. Webcam mic.
Epos, how about you? Question that gets your blood boiling.
So I definitely relate to Ernst's question because I also just hate when people ask what the best is, and then when I give them the theoretical best, they're just like get deer in the headlights at the price, and I'm like, you asked what the best is, not what you can buy for $100. Those are very different questions. Obviously, top pet peeves. Can I ask you a question? I just don't respond anymore. And then secondly, I get a lot of questions that show that the person has put zero effort into trying to troubleshoot themselves or like figuring out what they need to ask. So like with streaming, it's like everything runs fine when I record, but then when I play it back, it's all choppy. It was fine when I played. Well, what's wrong? And I'm like, okay, but of course it was fine when you played. You're not watching the recording. Of course, like
no, but the OBS preview, it looked fine.
What about the stats? What are stats? Okay, here you go. Okay, yeah, it says it's all bad. How fix?
Oh yeah, those
like,
are the
I
bad
love
ones.
helping people. I love teaching. I love trying to make sure everyone, understands what needs to be done. But I do require people to put in just like a tiny bit of effort to at least like. And there's so many people who will show up and refuse to like find any more information. Like they will show up with their problem and refuse to test anything else or like get you any more information unless you already have an answer for them.
Right. And I know that I've seen this. Some of your people in your Discord, bless their hearts, they're so patient and they're so nice. And I see the same exact thing happen to them. What happens to me where you have, I think there's a command that they run that says, this is all the base information that I need. So you'll throw out something like, hey, here are these 7 pretty mild in knowledge questions I need answered. Right. Do me a favor, answer these 7.
And they'll answer like 1.
And they'll just answer the 1. It's like, okay, sir, madam.
It's a desktop. Oh, thanks.
Thank you. I thought you were using a talk boy.
It's a PC.
Or they'll find the one question that like maybe you assumed something in your response, and they go, no, I don't have that. It's like, okay, well, I still asked you 6 other questions.
Yeah.
And to be honest, that's not limited to the streaming world at all.
Oh, not at all.
I do tech support in my everyday life, and you'll sit there, and a lot of the time I'm over the phone, especially now with working remote. Everybody's trying to get remote support because nobody wants German-fested nerds in their buildings. But yeah, it's really hard to pull information out of people. And the one thing that I have to remind myself is that the person who's asking for help, whether they're doing it deliberately or not, is giving me 60 to 70% of the truth. Your job as like a tech support person is to interpret what they're saying and yank the rest of the truth out of them, because they're like, oh yeah, no, I turned on my computer and it's not working. Well, what they really mean is just the Windows Explorer process isn't starting up. The computer works, it turns on, it's great, and we can't expect them to know everything. So that's just how it goes. But yeah,
and especially with answers like I've tried everything. Like I'm guilty of giving those too. Like I've tried everything, or I've already rebooted my machine because I don't feel like doing it and I know it's not going to fix it. And lo and behold, turning it off and on again actually fixed it.
Fix it is a lot when it's Windows audio issues.
The amount of times that I'll go to a client and I will simply restart their PC and they're like, oh my God, I haven't been able to print for weeks. What did you do? I said, I just restarted your computer. I'm sorry. You literally paid $190 for me to come out and reboot your PC. So sad.
I had a taste of doing tech support with the job I had. And or either they'll like have not turned it off for months and then they turn it off to bring it in. Because I worked at Staples Easy Tech, so they had to bring stuff to us. And then they'll turn it on and be completely unable to recreate it.
Oh, yep. I can't do anything.
Like RAM issues that have stacked on top of each other for weeks and weeks on end.
And I'm just like, the manager's looking the other way. You just take that home and I won't say anything.
There are times when I've gone just to clear like a browser cache, and it's gigs worth of stuff that has just been stacked up over years and years. And then they know what it's like to browse the internet with the small cache. Like, oh my God, it's like a new computer. Yeah. But in the same way that nobody taught us about like voting or taxes or like finances in high school, nobody taught them about computers. So you have to give them like the benefit of the doubt. But sometimes it's hard,
especially like, and I have always felt like there's this like weird gap that certain generations came up in, where like if you came up during like the start of modern computers, where you had like the early Windows coming in and stuff, you had to learn to troubleshoot everything because it was broken. Whereas if you if you kind of grew up and figured out life before computers, then computers were this whole new thing that you either learned or didn't, and you're just kind of done. And if you came up in the like smartphone era, everything's done for you. You're not expected to do anything. And so you don't learn troubleshooting other than like little things, because you can't really do much of it on here in the same sense. And so there's like two sides of this like weird gap of just like actual computer use that has always just like,
Do you guys think that we will get to a point where we're too old and decrepit to keep up with tech? Like we're going to be that because technology just advanced too far, too fast. And we're going to be like, you know what? I'm out. I can't keep up.
I don't think the three of us will, because we're at least from what I think I know, are first adopters and testers and tinkerers. So I think from that perspective, we're always going to stay up. But
chat, you're fucked.
But there's a lot of people like my brothers and sister that they'll just we lose the cam because it's overheating.
No way.
Yeah. So anyway, now you guys got this. Now that we need a meme face, but it'll come back on here shortly in a second.
Okay.
But
thanks, Sony.
I think like my brothers and sisters are going to deal with that, and you're going to run into situations where new apps and new platforms are going to come out, work-related platforms that require you to be extremely proficient in different things, and it's definitely going to cause that for our generation.
Yeah,
I already see it coming up.
I've said from a very early age that I would never be that person. And so I'd like to think I won't with like technology in general, because my favorite trait of mine is that I can pick up, like I started making tutorials because the easiest way for me to learn software was to force myself to do it for a video. And then suddenly I could teach people how to do it. But I think with certain like trends is where that's going to hit me the hardest. Like to this day, I do not freaking understand TikTok. Every piece of content someone shares from Twitter, I'm looking at it like it's some alien like nonsense. Like, why did you make this? Why does anyone watch this? Why does this have 1 million views? I don't even understand what's happening in front of me. And 5 seconds later, it's done. And so
I thought that way as well. And then I downloaded the app and
Yep.
spent my screen time doubled. So
it's all about finding super niche stuff. Like I have one guy who runs a computer repair shop, and he just like super vlogs all the repairs that he does. And then I follow another guy. He's a Canadian who goes magnet fishing, where he just throws massive magnets into rivers and pulls out whatever it gets. You would think, if you would listen to like the tone of his voice, you would think he pulled out gold like every time. He'd be like, "Oh my God, a Razor scooter. You gotta be kidding me." He gets so excited over everything that he gets. And it's just like, that's the type of TikTok content that I'm all about. And then you get some of the other stuff. I don't want to dog on anybody. But yeah, I felt when I first downloaded TikTok, that was how I felt almost immediately. Was like, I don't understand anything that's going on.
Yeah. And see, I don't really have the patience to sit here and find like to curate my stuff. Like I will see recommendations from other people like, here's a camera hacks TikTok channel. I'm like, this stuff's great. I still wish it was in a 3-minute video format instead of 30 seconds on TikTok, but it's great. But then like the mainstream stuff, I'm just like, who are you people? Why?
Yeah. 4 million followers, 6 million followers.
Yeah.
Crazy. All right. Hey, let's get into a couple questions that we've accumulated here. First one from Hellhound. If we had more than one knackers, what would happen to the world? I think that needs to go unanswered. So we're just going to go right to the next one. From Big Shoe.
2020 remix.
Remix all over again. God, can you... I don't even want to think about that. The fact that we could have like another 2020, but in 2021. Jesus Christ. Yeah. Big Shoe asks, what was your best light bulb moment in streaming where something clicked and you learned something important? I actually have this one. So I'll go first while you both think. For me, the first time that I understood, this happened to both myself and my brother, where we were trying to figure out how a dual PC audio would work. Like, you can watch as many tutorials as you want. It's like, do you guys remember when you first tried to wrap your head around using OBS to send your preview to a capture card? Like doing the Phantom virtual desktop, where you have like, you plug your graphics card directly into a capture card and it creates like a third virtual monitor that's not really there, but it's there. I remember the first time I tried to wrap my brain around that working, and I failed miserably. And this was me just trying to hook up my dual PC setup for the first time back in like 2017. And I knew nothing about audio mixers. I had bought a single Behringer 1204. I was like, I'm going to make dual PC setups work. Ernst, thanks to you for your dual PC setup video. And I remember just like laying in bed and it fucking just like clicked in my mind. It's like that episode of Drunk History about Edison and Nikola Tesla. It's like bright light, burning bush. I know how I can make dual PC audio work. And then the next day I got in, I made it happen. I'm like, this is awesome. I feel so great about myself. So that was it for me.
I had a similar one. Oh, good.
I'm not going to talk. You're going to go.
I had a similar one with dual PC audio when I actually discovered mixers that had virtual audio devices you could route to, like my Soundcraft one, and then what the Go XLR now does. I spent literally my whole career looking for what the Go XLR just showed up and did like 6 months after I finally found it, because previously I had spent years with like 6 sound cards and hum destroyers and all this cable spaghetti monster into one mixer just so I could like separate, because I refused to use voice meter for some reason, and to this day I have not. And so I had to do it the hardware way, and so I had this whole mess, and I was like, wait, they make mixers that actually do this? And admittedly, when I started, even though I spent easily $500 on all these cables and filters and crap, like a $500 mixer still seemed like prohibitive. But now it's like, okay, pick that up. And then 6 months later, the Go XLR is like, hey guys. But I think for me was a light bulb moment I actually had when I was making my OBS course, in that I had wanted forever for them to make a feature that is still the most requested feature in the comment of today's OBS video, of selective recording, where you can record 2 separate sources at once. The only software prior to Streamlabs that really had this was Elgato's original Game Capture HD software. It would let you record your webcam and your capture card separately. but the webcam recorded at like 166p and the frame rate was terrible. It was a mess. And I was like, there's got to be a way to do this with OBS. And I wanted to figure it out for that course. And it's still like my favorite, like secret recommendation I give. And it's literally just recording a bigger canvas and then cropping it off and duplicating the tracks. And then you have webcam and gameplay and you do it. And it seems dumb, but like for a long time, I was like, because there's no way to do it still. But that was like the easy way of just like, I could just record both on the same screen.
Who would have thunk at that time, right?
Yeah.
It's crazy to imagine either of you, having a light bulb moment, because you are both dudes that I've always known of just having it figured out already. And I'm like, I was always looking to you guys to like catch up on shit. But everybody, just like pooping, everybody everybody poops, everybody learns. We all just learn at our own pace, really.
I will say this whole setup, which my mouse is failing me, this whole setup you see right here, all of this, I don't really stream much, in case you haven't noticed. Like as I'm a new dad, I don't really have time to stream, but I build these ridiculous like 12 camera setups and stuff just so I can figure these things out, because otherwise I'm going to sit there and just like pontificate it and be like, best stream setup, how make? And it doesn't work until I'm like throwing it all together. And so I literally just sit there and build and tear down stream setups just so I can figure this crap out.
4 cameras, how do? With a YouTube thumbnail of open mouth pointing to an OBS. You need these 5 OBS plugins. Which you guys touched on something. It was actually the final question that I knew I wanted to ask you. I came across a couple tutorials today regarding how to get professional audio for free. And of course, what's in the tutorial? Voicemeeter banana or Voicemeeter potato. And every time the tutorials always start off from a good place. They're trying to get you to get better sound out of your setup with a free tool so that you don't have to go out and buy expensive equipment. But what it always ends up being is this super extra convoluted setup with like multiple DAWs, and you have all of this different freeware that's tying in with Voicemeeter. And Voicemeeter is a terrible looking piece of software. Even somebody who has like a semi-good understanding of audio, I look at Voicemeeter and go, what the fuck is this? What is this UI? And not to dog the people that design it. Maybe it's designed with like a certain thing in mind. I don't get that thing. I don't get why it looks the way that it is. So to hear you both solidify that in my brain, that Voicemeeter isn't that great of a solution, and not that it's not a great solution, it's just not a solution that any of us approve of. What's your main reason for not pointing people towards a Voicemeeter solution?
Because Voicemeeter's routing, in particular with dual PCs, getting one to communicate to the other and then back, has 2 inherent problems. One, it's overriding Windows audio devices, which I hate. I don't want Windows to have an update and reset everything. I think when you have a setup very similar to mine, where I have like instruments going into my PC, I have the dual PC thing going on a long time ago, I don't want things to overwrite the settings that I've spent a lot of time setting up. And when those things crash, if you don't know the ins and outs and resetting it all, you spend a lot of time redoing that. Every time there's a minute, Windows update, whatever it happens to be, I just don't want that. On top of it, depending on what setting you choose, you can have latency, and latency is related to buffer. And if your buffer changes, you could start up a stream and it's 100 milliseconds off from your cams and everything else, and that's a pain in the ass. You're sitting there fucking clapping like an asshole right before you're starting your stream, just to try to figure out like if your timing is off or not, and you fucking hate it. And I just don't want any of that. I want everything hardwired. I want it all right on the dot. I know even with cap cards and stuff, you get 40 milliseconds here and there, and that's a quick setup, but for all intents and purposes, like once you set it up, it doesn't change as long as you disable buffer. So
how about you?
That's my number one reason.
Okay. How about you, Epos?
I mean, basically the same thing. Like virtually everyone I've tried helping with it, because I can at least look at it and get a general understanding. Like they've never figured out how audio, like it. The software, like you mentioned, the UI is so like abstracted from how actual audio hardware works that they don't learn what they're doing. And I feel like even if you just buy a $40 mixer and a couple cables just to tinker with and not actually commit to, you can understand the basic audio chain of like how audio gets from here, this PC to this PC. When you're running physical cables, you figure it out. When you're using voice meter and trying to figure out the order and stuff, you don't actually have a clue what you're doing. And then when I'm trying to help you troubleshoot, it just doesn't work. On top of the fact that I went through the phase of everyone pairing them with the Focusrite interfaces and getting all of the crackling and the DPC latency, and Focusrite being like, no, it's your bad hardware. And then suddenly no one bought their interfaces anymore. And they're like, I don't understand. And it's just, it's a very rare situation where someone's actually using voice meter and has really like mastered what they're doing with their audio. It can do a lot of really cool stuff, but whether you're actually learning how to do that or you're just trying to split your music so that you can jam out to your stream and then your viewers aren't hearing what you're jamming out to, and then it's just kind of awkward. I try not to like encourage or enable that kind of behavior. It's the same thing with OBS. Like I will clickbait the hell out of a best settings for OBS video, but I'm going to teach you why these freaking settings are the best. I'm not just going to be like, here, copy this, because that's what all the other videos do. And then people come to me and they're like, I forgot my best settings. Can you give them to me? And I was like, if you knew why you were setting them, you wouldn't need to hear them again. You'd just tweak from there. That's why I try to teach. And I'd rather show you with some tiny little mixer running audio cables, and it works.
That's actually a good point.
Their UI is leagues better than Windows XP's virtual audio cable, which is when I started trying to learn that stuff. And I was just like, nope. It's not worth it.
Did either of you use a Java-based application called Noise Gator?
I tried it once.
Okay.
I think a long time ago.
Yeah.
And I think I gave up after day 1 or 2.
It was
I'm not going to use it.
It was a Windows 7 only application, and that's actually what I used as a noise gate for like the longest time. It was just a software, it was just a DAW that just did noise gate, and it was called Noise Gator. And right. But yeah, it broke eventually. But yeah, I have a hard time recommending it. And in my opinion, and I get this a lot when people ask me tech questions. People always ask questions because they feel like they need a certain functionality out of their stream setup. Just because for the most part, you're not going to be touching anything. You know, it's like, yes, if you decide to play a new game and the audio's too loud, you want to be able to adjust it on the fly physically with an analog slider. Okay, I get it. But you play Fortnite, you play Call of Duty, you're playing the same game all the time. You know, do you really need to have, having what the Go XLR gives you, in my opinion, is a privilege, not a necessity, as far as like the faders of being able to control software with hardware, software audio. But everybody, like, I never remember it being that big of a deal breaker for me. I'm like, yeah, I mean, it'd be cool to be able to adjust that on the fly, but how often are you actually...
lived without it before.
Right. And that's, I mean... It's kind of hard to say because you don't want to sound like you're gatekeeping the hobby at all, right?
Well,
I had it, but or I didn't have it, and you can't have it.
Well, I mean, we've reached the phase with streaming where everything is now like a lifestyle thing. Like it's no longer the tools you need. It's I want to have the streamer lifestyle, so I need this camera, the Elgato lights, the Go XLR, an RGB keyboard, the flashy tiles behind me, the all of that. And then not have a clue why any of it doesn't work the next day, and I'll not stream for 6 months. And that, to each their own. Like you said, I'm not here to gatekeep and tell people, you shouldn't do this or you don't deserve that or whatever. And yeah, if you worked hard for your money and you want to slap up some RGB and lights and feel cool, I'm certainly not going to stop you. I mean, shit. But but there's a lot of newcomers who don't have a big budget who are like wanting this because they think they need it and are completely like, they've heard enough of their like top streamers or lifestyle channels being like, yeah, this is the number one thing I recommend for your channel. and they won't hear any reason as to why they probably don't need it.
I was that way pretty big time with the Stream Deck. I started dual PC back in 2015. I was kind of one of like 4 guys I knew of on Twitch at the time that had it, and so that was also before bitrate caps. So we were all streaming at I was streaming at 12,000 back then and had the crispiest looking stream, because I can handle it. But I was the same way. I basically set up a series of macros and recordable macros on a K95 on the G buttons, and I can have my input directed at my game PC and have everything happen on OBS at the same time. So then my ass is like, why do I ever need a Stream Deck? Like, no, I've got it all down.
Yep. I was the same way. I mean, I even showed that in the
and
video.
It's fucking glorious. I love it. And I hate it. I hate myself for saying this, but like this little Spotify Next button on my Stream Deck just fucking makes me happy. It's a whole lot better than the G17. It's like,
no, I mean, I was the same way. I even showed that in some of my original reviews. Like, I had an entire desk full of like keyboards where I had taped labels over the buttons, and I was like, I didn't think I needed this, but the second I needed to change one of these damn things, and I can just swap it out and it changes in real time, I'm like, oh, yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
Like,
I still don't believe in a lot of the Elgato stuff, but
yeah,
there's certain things. Their cap cards are phenomenal. Stream Deck is amazing. What I've seen of the microphone is a start. Still seems, but it's a good start. There's nothing wrong with that. Don't get me started on the mounts and the key lights, though. I still don't believe in those. So
really interesting.
Yeah.
I want to get into that a little bit later. We'll knock out some more questions. Next question from Cintrabeats. Where did you buy or get that PlayStation neon sign made, EposVox?
Well, that's a sad story. So, my favorite childhood local game store got liquidated. They went bankrupt and got liquidated, and had a big local, every store when that happens, they have like liquidation auctions and stuff. And so it cost me like $400, but it was worth it. They had a bunch of others, but I couldn't afford it at the time, and I wouldn't have had anywhere to put it anyway. But they had like a smaller GameCube one and an Xbox one, but that was the one I picked up. And so it's been hanging in their window for like 20 years, and hopefully it'll give me 20 more.
How long have you been scouring the internet for a neon Blockbuster sign?
Way too long. And the number of conversations I had at our local Toys R Us when they were going out about like getting signage and stuff, and them refusing to give it to me despite all the Reddit stories of everyone walking away with them.
Damn,
it's very depressing.
That's it. You probably really enjoy that hunt, right? Of going out and trying to find that like nostalgic like merchandise and stuff.
A little bit. Okay. I usually just get too annoyed. Like, honestly,
now you need a new series on your YouTube.
Yeah.
He posts pickers. What's that show where they go to like salvage yards? Yeah. You go do the same thing, but you hunt retro stuff.
The garage sale Gary V, but just like retro shit.
Yeah. So I am fully ashamed to admit that late last year I was driving along the expressway, and on the side of the road I can't remember if it was Domino's or Pizza Hut, but the car topper sign was just on the side of the expressway. And I thought to stop and get it, and I didn't. And then it was gone when I went back. And I still to this day, like, that would have been so freaking cool. But a lot of the stuff, like, so much, especially in the retro scene, is like super competitive on eBay and Craigslist, and everyone shoots up prices. Like, I just want to go somewhere and buy something, man. I don't want to have to fight for it or hunt too much for it. Like, it's really cool. The feeling you get when you do stumble upon something like that is just like the best. But like that staying up all night to like bid on this and fight other people, like to get and pay way too much just to get it. Like, I would have rather just paid for it and had it shipped to my house. Like, there's some thrill of it, and then some of it's just like, why is this so complicated? I just want a thing.
This is why Glorious is one of my favorite hardware companies right now, because they like taking hardware that other companies that I will not name like to create this scarcity mindset about these amazing peripherals, and they just say, oh, okay, well, we're just going to make the same thing and mass produce the shit out of them. They just did it with a mouse. I'm awaiting my pink.
Same.
So you haven't gotten yours yet either?
Nope.
Okay, soon. They just got into the mechanical switch market as well by redoing some Holy Pandas. I'm going to wait to see how they actually perform to make an opinion about it. But I cannot stand that type of marketing. It obviously works, right? But fuck it if it's not incredibly frustrating as an end user for, Epos. I would consider you on the luckier side because you're home and you could kind of monitor those types of buys, right? But for anybody who's working a 9-to-5 job and they're away from a computer for the entire day, they're completely fucked. So yeah, that
and
kind
I
of
still run into that. Like even like I have a kid. I can't just like stay up till X a.m. and just like fight for the last bid on certain things. And then like just recently, the analog little Game Boy that they made, it sold out in like 2 hours. And it's like, yeah, I planned on pre-ordering it today, but I wasn't planning on being awake at this exact moment in time to hit the button as soon as it went live. Like that's insane. And those kinds of situations, it's the same thing. Like they haven't even made them yet. So to have limited pre-orders to the extent that it could sell out within 1 hour for something you have not made yet is completely bull. Like if you haven't placed the order, you can still just tell them to make more and it's cheaper for you. Like it's just, I don't deal with the fake scarcity stuff. Like I just either I get it or I don't.
Yep. And if it's there, if I still feel the need to get it in 6 months and it's there, I'll just get it then.
Yeah. I've been fighting for there's a Nintendo DS capture system that are used at like press events and things like that. And a buddy told me about it, but then he also tweeted out about it before I got mine. And the first couple, like there was only like 8 or so that went for sale from this auction, like one after the other. The first 2, the dude who told me about it paid $300. The first 2 after he tweeted about it went for $1,400. And I was just like, God. No way in hell. And it appears I got like one of the last ones that was listed for much closer to what he paid for it. But I was just like, it's not who paid that? What? Yeah.
What other Epos is out there that wants this hardware?
Like I wanted it really bad, but I didn't want it $1,400 bad compared to the $300 it went for 18 hours ago.
That's insane. Next question. Do you recommend, this one's from Middle Age Stream, do you recommend placing OBS assets on a separate hard drive if you create complex scenes?
Short answer for me is just somewhere where it's saved. I mean, I'm the type of guy that has OS on its own drive, different, whether it's Steam or Origin or all of those are on different drives. Just so if something gets corrupted and breaks, I can replace it. For me, I don't really have complex OBS scenes, so I don't care if it dies. I can recreate them fast. Google Drive is good enough for me. But yeah, I mean, if you have scenes and filters and animations and CSS and anything else that you have, I'd put it somewhere where if other stuff gets corrupt or wasted, you can get that back fast because that's hours and hours and hours that you're going to lose.
Yeah, definitely.
Anytime, like general rule.
Yeah, keep it backed up. In terms of performance, like put it on a SSD, but otherwise you don't need it like separate from your operating system or even from your record drive, really. Like in terms of just performance, like you're not likely to be reading anything that's that heavy that it matters. I wouldn't recommend storing it over the network. I've always done that because I'm stubborn. I'm like, I've got 10 gig. It should be fine. But the latency of like accessing certain files is still so high that doesn't work out really well. But yeah, just a basic SSD is fine.
So I am definitely on the boat where I keep my operating system and installed programs are the only thing that are on my primary operating system. What I do for my dual PC setup is my secondary hard drives are large and fast so that I take anything that is photoshopped, any image, any video, any audio file, any sound effect, all of those files are synced always between those two computers. So if I make a change to any Photoshop file, if I make a change to any audio clip, that file is automatically synced over to the secondary hard drive on my streaming PC. That makes it so I don't have to transfer things back and forth. And I know Middle Age Stream for you, you're on a single PC setup, so this isn't as important for you. But absolutely. The thing that has always kind of bit me in the ass is that OBS depends on file paths. So if your file paths change, if your drive letters change, or your folder structure changes, you're going to have a hard time kind of like resyncing all of your sources. So
I would love a relink button for OBS.
Oh my God.
Like
yes,
in After Effects or like Premiere, where it's like, just find all the footage in this folder, like to just relink all your assets in that one folder. That would be so amazing.
Yep. Because I just ran into that where my folder structure for my saving those files was a little gunked up. I'm like, all right, after 6 years, I'm finally going to just redo everything from the ground up. I have an audio folder, a video folder, and a picture folder. And everything is separated into those 3 now. But yeah, going back and like resyncing all of those files, I was like, you know what? I might as well just rebuild my OBS studio from scratch at this point.
Yep. I've done that a couple of times.
Next question, also from Middle Age Stream. How big of a difference in overall quality would I see in NVENC encoding if I had an RTX card? Currently use a 1080. And he has a 2nd generation Ryzen as his streaming PC right now. I know that he games. He has a 4K monitor. He has a Ryzen CPU, 16 gigs of RAM, and then a 1080.
Like, are we talking, so just NVENC from the 1080 to the 20 series?
I think so, because I think he's currently using, I don't think he's using NVENC at all, if I remember correctly. I think he's only doing 264.
I mean, if he can do medium on X264, if it's a dedicated computer, then just go with that. If you're looking at NVENC, I mean, depending on what setting you're using, it could be anywhere from like 15% to crazy if you were using some like super fast preset. But it just depends on what you were streaming with before. It's nice, but my usual recommendation is, especially for a dedicated stream PC, if you can push medium, just stick with X264 and use your graphics card just for the compositing. If you can't push medium like reliably, if you have to change it back and forth or anything like that, just stick with the GPU, because it's not worth like fighting constantly, especially for 20 series, because it's fairly competitive unless you play like just purely like dark horror games or something.
Yeah, I use I bought a streaming PC back in 2017. It was a 1st generation Ryzen. It still does good. It struggles in a couple areas as far as even just trying to maintain a 1080p canvas with a 720p 60 stream, and then trying to record. I have some performance issues, and I know that as you know, Epos, I'm still using the Sub 2R as my primary camera. That uncapped 1080p 60 bandwidth, it's like 4.8 gigs, I think, just incoming. And so when I just have a full screen camera in OBS, OBS is using about 50% of my CPU, sometimes even 60. So going into the NVENC route and getting a 1660 Ti, and then being able to record 1080p 60 almost lossless with just the GPU, and then stream with the CPU has been a godsend ever since.
I'm on the full blown NVENC fanboy wagon, so to speak, and I was hard against it for years. I had a Ryzen. I still have a Ryzen 1800X in my stream PC, and it only ever used to push 900p faster or something like that, And I never wanted to run 1080 anyway. But when I talked to Geraldo and he said, 1660 Ti for $250 can run 1080 on the new NVENC, and I've switched, and to me, if you're starting out as a streamer, there's not a reason to go dual PC anymore, in my mind. But to Middle Age's question, I still subjectively think that NVENC looks better than X264, and that's where I think the actual like objective evidence doesn't stand up to the subjectivity of somebody else's eyes. There's things that NVENC provides that to some people look better than what X264 provides, and even though the quality is better with the X264 medium or better, I feel like the sharpness that NVENC can sometimes provide, especially on static UI items, it feels like it makes the stream look better, even though there might be more blocking that show up. You know what I mean?
Right.
And that's the part to me, which is like, test it out, see what you like. Maybe for one game, a slower paced game, X264 looks better for you. Or maybe for a faster paced game, X264 looks better for you. Or maybe, find out between the games that you play what setting you like a little bit more. Because I'm fully on the NVENC bandwagon at this point, but that's just me. I know there's hundreds out there that are on X264, and objectively, the evidence says to stay with X264.
Do you record and stream with NVENC at the same time?
No, I don't record anything.
Okay. I'm kind of a archive junkie to where I record absolutely everything.
Everything must be preserved.
Yeah. Which I'm currently fighting a battle right now. Sometimes I've used the same recording profile. If I stream, like, this podcast will be 10 gigs, and it'll probably come out to about usually an average of 2 hours. I had a 9-hour stream on Friday that came out to 160 gigs. So
Pod update, I got it.
Only 4 times the length, yet way more than quadruple the size. There was another stream I had. It was a 12-hour stream, and right now I'm recording NVENC 1080p 60 with a QRF of 22. That 12-hour stream was 360 gigs, and that's not even on max quality. That's just regular quality preset, no parameters whatsoever. And it's like, I keep getting this weird fluctuation where my file sizes will be small for smaller streams. As soon as I get into longer streams, the size just goes and goes and goes and goes. And of course, with auto remuxing, I'll like blink and my 1 terabyte recording drive or 1 terabyte recording SSD is fucking full. I'm like, what is happening? I don't understand. So that's currently a battle I'm fighting. But yeah, I'm torn because there are definitely things that make me think that NVENC looks better. And to your point, once the bitrate cap gets upped, the blockiness isn't going to be an issue anymore. And then objectively, it is going to be better. And I think that NVENC definitely does a better job with super, super dark stuff like details and shadows. But it's hard to get people to fully invest in a it is a new platform, right? Because NVENC has only been a thing for a couple of years now, and 264 has been a thing for the beginning of time. But it definitely has been standing up and standing up on its own.
Well, and NVENC used to be just so bad. Yeah, it's been around for. I mean, you used to be able to do it on at least as far as I can remember, 760. I think it was the first time I saw it.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was thinking just a new NVENC.
Oh yeah. The new one. Definitely the touring one is. But I mean, regular.
And that's
NVENC,
where they're actually training for game streaming and stuff instead of just generally throwing it at you.
Yep. The old NVENC used to be hot shit. Like you could, but ever since the new one, I changed my mind. But I'm now, I literally have a dedicated stream PC, and everything runs off of a 1660 Ti. I have a $2,500 PC and a $250 graphics card that runs everything.
Yeah. That was, I remember when I first got my 1660, I'm like, okay, the $280 graphics card that is pretty much beating out the CPU. Like, I think when I got my Ryzen 1700, I want to say that the CPU in the MOBO was close to $400, probably around there. I can't remember when I got it in regards to when it actually released, but yeah, it's really, really hard to sway people towards, and not necessarily that they need to be swayed, but to be convinced that dual PC streaming is still a thing. I really think that nowadays it comes down to your preference and what you desire out of a setup. Because right now, I know Epos, I see you talk about this on Twitter all the time, where people are having the conversation of high refresh rate, gaming PCs and whether or not they run OBS on their gaming PC or they clone their displays. And the argument is always, what's the point of having a dual PC setup if you're going to run OBS on your gaming PC? And to me, that's always a big deciding factor when you're like, do I need a dual PC setup? I'm like, well, can you detect the insane micro stutter and latency that exists when you have OBS running on your gaming PC? Some people can't. Some people have OBS that runs and they do not notice whatsoever. As soon as I turn on OBS on a gaming PC, I immediately notice a difference in responsiveness, in frame rate, and quality. Do you think that is enough to still recommend a dual PC setup to somebody?
If you're a top end, if you're the top end of gamers in terms of your competitive ability, then yes. If you're a top content creator and your sole content is being the best of a particular category and you're relying on that little bit, then yes. I do think it's there, because in my coaching of different pros in my years past and dealing with even people today where I'm consulting on what they should be doing for their stream, the answer is yes. Yes, you should be running dual PC, because it firms up or it frees up that extra little edge. And whether or not you can actually tell, it's just the smoothness. When you're the best of the best at a game, you can feel a hitch, whether it's you hit your first shot and the second one misses because you missed a packet sending to the server. You feel it as a professional gamer. If you're a normal content creator and you're doing it out of fun and you're having glorious time with your friends and you're doing other things, then no, I don't think you need it. That's my opinion.
I mean, generally, if you have to ask, you probably don't need it. Like, you should only really need to make the move when you recognize a problem that it would solve. Like, a lot of people are just like, oh, other people are doing this, should I do the thing? And it's like, are you unhappy with the thing that you're doing now? Can that be optimized? And it's like, I don't know, other people are just doing it. And so it's one of those things, like, there's so many factors involved. I would agree that if you are specifically, super competitive and you're at that top tier, especially if you're actually like making revenue with your stream, it's worth it. If you're just getting into it, there's probably no reason to, because you like there's so much of a big investment for the audio, for the video, for all of it, to just make it happen. And there's so many extra, like we were just complaining about voice meter, like all the problems you can run into if you don't actually learn how you built your 2 PC setup, just gets worse. But at the same time, like, I only went, like, at one point I had committed to going back to a single PC setup when I got Threadripper, because I can do pretty much anything on Threadripper and I don't need it. But specific games, like I was playing a lot of Warzone at the time, literally just do not cooperate with OBS. Certain games are just like, screw you. And I was having this bizarre issue, which was not uncommon at the time, apparently, where literally the frames it was encoding were like out of order. And so it would be like one frame, and then the next frame would be back here, and the next frame, the next one's back here. And so there's this like stutter of like it being out, and just all these weird little issues that just aren't an issue when you're on dual PC setup. And so since I was streaming that at the time, that pushed me back to it. But otherwise, like, when I am not swimming in hardware, I was using InVink on a single PC for most of my streaming, because that's what it was for, especially in these days. Like, for a while, I was pushed to dual PC streaming before the run OBS as admin fix was introduced, because the render lag I was getting trying to game and stream at 4K, well, not stream at 4K, but game at 4K and stream, like, I had the headroom, I knew what I was doing, but OBS was still like crapping out until that fix was introduced. Certain setups, high refresh rate or 4K streaming was just, you couldn't do it. Like, it just
that brings up a really interesting question, just right off the top of my head, that I'd be curious to get your input on. So I used to be the resolution whore, meaning I always wanted, every time when the new ROG Swift would drop, I'd pick it up, I'd buy it. I'd have highest resolution, highest refresh rate I can buy. And I recently downgraded from 1440 165 down to 1080 240. And it's interesting because there's been a couple new monitors that have been announced, released, whatever you want to call it, that are 4K X number of refresh rate, also does 1440 at 240 or whatever these stories are that are coming out. And my first thought as a dual PC streamer now is, how the hell am I going to cap that?
Yep.
Like, how the hell am I going to get that? I want these ultra wides. I want these, I'm a monitor whore.
Yeah.
I want all of this to happen, but as a dual PC streamer,
Yep.
I'm reserved. I'm not going to go to NDI. I'm not going to do this virtual preview thing. I don't want to do that. But what are your guys' takes on those things that are coming out where cap cards are quote unquote so far behind these monitors?
Well, I mean, that's been the issue since like day one of high refresh rate, is the early adopters get punished, because everyone who bought the first generation high refresh rate monitors got screwed because none of them had HDMI 2.0.
Well, the Magewell. I had the $800 Magewell card that did it in a shit way.
Yeah. And none of those monitors supported, like, you couldn't use pass-through, you had to use cloning. And everyone's like, well, why can't I use pass-through? And I'm like, you bought a monitor that didn't support it. The same thing with everyone who bought 4K 120 monitors now. They don't have HDMI 2.1. So when the HDMI 2.1 capture cards come out, you're still stuck. And I experimented with a controversial take tweet, I guess a couple months ago now, where I was just like, buying a 4K 120 monitor or something like that is one of the worst mistakes a streamer can make. And it pissed a lot of people off because they were just like, well, I have it and it's fine. I'm streaming it with an HD 60S. And I'm like, dude, I pulled up your stream. It's tearing all over the place. It's not fine. What are you talking about?
We need an EposVox gif of that dog burning in the house, but angry, saying it's not fine. It's not.
And the gif is all screen tear.
Yep.
Yeah. Make it happen, chat.
I find. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. I want you to finish.
I was just gonna say I find 1440p 120 to be like the sweet spot. I've been experimenting with a 1080p 240 monitor, and like I could totally downgrade and be fine. Like the difference between the two is not significant enough for gaming like casually that I'd be okay. But I don't play enough games that I could run, like my gaming PC is a 2080 right now. Like there's not enough games that I could run at settings I'm comfortable running, because I like running higher quality stuff at 240 hertz. Like I'm sitting here playing Modern Warfare 2 with the IW4X mod to get 240. I'm like, this is cool, but I'm not going to play this in Counter-Strike all day, every day. Right. And so to me, it's more reasonable to push newer games at 120 for 1440p. The 4K 120 and the 1440p 200 hertz and the ultra wide at 200, like you're not going to be able to stream it without NDI or something else. And then that's the same problem of you're running OBS on your gaming PC. So you can't, like, you're an early adopter. There's literally nothing that accepts those formats right now.
Right.
And that's where I landed. I landed 1440p 120. In fact, my ROG Swift is now my stream PC monitor and my third monitor on my gaming PC, because it's just sitting here. But I prefer 1080 240 in the games that I play versus 1440 120. And the answer that I have is the mouse movement on 1080 feels better than the mouse movement on 1440 to me. Which in theory it should scale the same.
Right. But it doesn't.
It doesn't.
I noticed this when I first started, and this has been 5 years now. I noticed this when I first started upgrading to 1440p and 4K monitors. Was it felt like at one point in time I was running whatever, I think it might have even been this mouse, but like a wireless SteelSeries mouse, I was running it at like 10,000 DPI to get like the same cursor tracking back for just like normal Windows usage. I was like, this is really weird. And I think it's normalized a little bit since then, but it's different. Well,
and in game, I feel like it changes a lot. The multipliers, I don't think game companies are optimizing, or maybe it's not even related to that, but I could sit there and I feel like my mouse is more precise on 1440, which actually causes a problem. When you think you're landing on somebody's head, it's off over their shoulder because it's more precise. When the pixel's a little bit larger on 1080 and you think you're landing on their head, it's on their head. Right. And it just feels, I don't know, for the games I play, it feels better. I don't know why.
For me, so just last night, me and my girlfriend started up a Borderlands 3 playthrough, which, holy shit, the difference between how Borderlands 3 looks and Borderlands, even the pre-sequel. And again, this is the difference between a 1080p and a 1440p monitor. It looks really, really good. Performance on my 1080, I'm lucky if I get 60 to 70 frames on medium right now. That game is a hog. I didn't realize how problematic getting into 1440p gaming would be as a dual PC streamer. I had a Elgato HD 60S up until a couple months ago, and even now with the Live Gamer 4K, it's still a struggle. Because my my base resolution on my gaming PC is 1440p, and then my canvas resolution on my OBS on my streaming PC is 1080. Whenever I'm doing a screen cap of something that's primarily text based, it doesn't look right. It's very pixelated. It's a little broken, and unless I want to go through and redo all of my sources by changing my base canvas to 720, which I really don't want to do, I'm like, well, I guess I just gotta kind of put up with this until a natural disaster makes me rebuild OBS from scratch. That's another thing I would love if there was like, hey, I'm changing my base canvas. Can you auto resize all of my sources to 720p, please?
Same. It's been a nightmare.
Yeah. And even just having I don't know if you guys have this bug. When I go from my streaming profile to my recording profile, streaming is 1080, recording is 1440. None of my sources resize to 1440. I actually have to close out of OBS and then reopen OBS to get all of my things to resize completely. Very odd issue. I also have another issue where, and I haven't reported this, but if I'm in a scene with a blank set of sources, if I right click and add a source, the source doesn't appear in the list until I switch to a different scene and then come back to that scene.
I've had that bug like a couple times. I've never been able to get back to it, but there was like a week where that just kept happening. I'm like, where is the source?
Yeah, no, that's every sourse that I add now, and I'm like, I just have to put up with it. Yeah. I love the way that 1440p 144 hertz looks. Unfortunately, because of the way that Windows works right now, I have to cap both of my displays at 120 or else I get a really, really bad micro stutter. So I'm currently only enjoying 1440p at 120. But
the good news is there's like no difference between the two. Like
it's very, very small.
Yeah.
The difference, however, like I'm like, okay, my 1080 is only getting 60 frames in Borderlands. This doesn't seem right. So I went back to 1080 and I'm like, oh my God. I can't game with this 1080p. I got to go back to 1440. I noticed immediately. Everything gets fuzzy. Things are pixelated. And
were you doing it on the same monitor though?
Yeah, you're doing it on a non-native, so the pixels don't align.
Oh yeah, I guess you're right.
So LCDs don't scale very well, at least most of them, and so you're getting a very blurry scaling happening.
Okay, well, I've had enough issues to where I have contemplated going back to 1080. But man, just like general Windows browsing on 1440, the difference between those two scales, it's really hard.
I'm running into an issue, and this at one point like made me, because at one point in time I had a 4K monitor, a 1440p monitor, and a 1080p monitor, and it's gotten better. But Windows does not handle mixed scaling ratios very well, and so like having Windows that would happen in two different monitors would like resize all over the place and be a terrible experience. And I'm running into that now because 200% scaling at 4K looks so much better for tutorials and stuff like that. But I use 150% to actually use it because that's what's more usable for me. But then certain programs like Resolve and even OBS, like the UI just entirely breaks sometimes at 150% and it just like doesn't want to work. And it's just like, this was never an issue at 1080p 100%.
That's exactly why I downgraded. Is everything works at 1080, and at some level it just makes your life easier.
Yep, that's where optimizations just kind of like stopped.
Yep.
Do you regret going back to 1080 at all, or are you totally satisfied, Ernst?
No, I'm so satisfied with it. And I joked, but like the 360 hertz just got announced. And my 3-monitor setup may actually be a 240 hertz, a 360 hertz, and then a 1446 165 as my 3-monitor setup. And look, I don't need it, but I can tell you something as a former like very, very competitive gamer for things, just Windows mouse movement turns me on at 360 hertz. Like,
sure.
Like it's going to look fluid. It's not going to look stuttery. Yeah. Like I can swipe my mouse across at 240 and sit there and watch a half an inch of gap in between each little mouse pointer. And if that gets down to like a quarter of an inch, I'm going to be a happy guy, you know?
Yep. Oh yeah. Just moving around Windows on that high refresh rate is definitely fun.
That's always been my favorite appeal is like seeing the animations and stuff. Like,
I think I still have an issue. There are some programs where I drag and it doesn't quite move at the right speed. So I can like grab a window and move it around super, super fast. And there will be 10 seconds of that window moving
welcome to
around.
DWM being embedded in Windows 10 now.
TeamViewer is one that's really bad. And then my graphics card overclocking apps do it really, really bad. What are... we'll do one question, Epos. What is the most common streaming misconception that you come across?
Honestly, that streaming is just streaming in the first place. Like that you just turn on the camera, turn on the capture card, and you're playing video games, and then you turn it off and you make a career. And that's never been the case. And that seems so obvious. Like every time someone explains it, I see people who are like, well, duh. But really, like the people who get into it and think they're going to be the next top streamer, they just want to play video games for 6 hours and then turn it off. And streaming is probably the least of what you actually do. It's such a big and it was the same thing with gaming YouTube back in the day. It's like I just want to post unedited Call of Duty commentaries all day, every day, and never learn anything and make a career. And it doesn't work that way.
Yeah, absolutely. That actually goes to something that you guys touched on earlier. Like, what was your light bulb moment? And I think my light bulb moment was, to make it as a big streamer, you have to, there's 2 generations of Twitch. Early generation of Twitch, you needed 2 of the following 3: insane gameplay, insane personality, and an insane community. 2 of those 3 things, and you would make it big. In today's world on Twitch, I think the community aspect is limited. It's a lot less. There's a lot less weight to the community side. I would have said it was like 40-40-20. Now I think it's probably 50-40-10 on that type of thing.
By the way, chat, we have Epos has a baby that is not cooperating with Mama Bear at the moment, so he's gonna be a good dad and go be a support system. That's how it goes. I knew booking this, especially 1 during the pandemic, and 2 with Epos being a new dad, that he would have some limitations. So Epos, you go do your thing, man. I appreciate you being here. Such a good man. Look at him go.
Look at him.
Is he turning off all the neon stuff?
And he keeps all that stuff on. I love it.
Oh, okay. Look at how many different lights he's got to turn off.
Why doesn't he have that all on one switch yet?
I don't know. There's like one single foot switch.
We should roast him for that. Not having it all on one switch at this point, or an Alexa command or something.
Consider yourself roasted, Epos.
Yeah.
There was the OBS disconnect. So I'm going to try and do this on the fly, where I'm going to get your face hopefully near a because right now you're split between 2 different. It looks good. All right, which one are you? You are this one. Okay, so I'm going to unlock you and I'm going to readjust you. Audio listeners, you're welcome. I could do that. Oh, look at that. Easy peas. You're there. Cool.
Hey.
This next question actually is directed at you. This one is for Ernst. How's the new moving going for you? Are you settling in? And what is your niche to go mix for a drink when it's summertime?
Well, I answered this one in chat, but I'll restate it. So the move is going well. We started last Tuesday, so everything's out of a box at this point. We just gotta organize and all that stuff. Go-to drink right now is a lot of gin and tonics, just messing around with all the different flavors you can get out of a gin and tonic. So that's my hot item is kind of bubbly stuff. Anything that's like bubbly right now is my summer thing. So gin and tonics are there, Aperol Spritz or spritzes in general. Definitely the thing going on right now.
I have very much enjoyed your TikTok bartender content.
Thank you.
What inspired you to get into that realm?
Actually, one of my friends from H1 was like, you make all these drinks and you post them on Twitter and they look amazing on Twitter. You should do drink TikTok, which is take your little 1-minute video, your 30-second video, whatever it is, and show people how to make a drink. So during my move, I was moved out of my house and was like, well, I got nothing to do. I can't stream. I can't, play games. I can't do anything. So why not start it up and see what we could do? So I come up with the drink based off of whatever ingredients, and my girlfriend does all the filming and does all the editing, and she's really the champion behind it. I'm just the guy that comes up with the drink, and is the face of the drink.
She obviously loves to have somebody who is so passionate about creating craft cocktails. I mean,
yeah.
We have another guy who's on the weekly show for the podcast, Bishop, and every podcast, his wife makes him a craft cocktail and actually writes out all of the ingredients and gives it to him so we can read off what he has. And his face lights up every time he's talking about cocks and cocktails. So it's nice to see. But yeah, it was really cool to see that, because that was a different kind of content that I've never seen from you before. I'm like, let's fucking go. I think my girlfriend was actually the one who pointed it out to me at first.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that's there's definitely more I want to do, and in fact, so now that I've moved into this new place, you won't be able to see it probably, but I'm gonna move my cam. Actually, let me see if I can do this. Hold on.
You have a ring light?
I'll show you. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I use a ring light, but it's a tiny one. It's like an 8-inch or something like that.
I know what 8 inches looks like.
I know, that's tiny, right?
No! 8 inches average!
Okay. Let me see if I can do this. Okay, so you can't really see it because the camera doesn't want to focus.
Crocs in our pocket. Oh, no.
Okay. You see in the back there?
Yes.
There's like shelves where the guitar is, and there's like alcohol up on that. That's going to be the background of the TikTok. Once we start getting like the content going, there's like shelves with all the glasses and some of the alcohol that I want on it. So,
dude, let's go. Wait, has that shelf always been there, just decorated with other things?
No, I put it up. On this like remodel.
Awesome. It looks good, man. It looks really good.
Yeah. So yeah, I literally have a TikTok frame that I've framed out, so that like once it's all set up, that's gonna be like my background, and I'll be able to like make drinks on that cart right there, and then in the background will be the setup. So we'll see. I don't know. It's got some vision to still be worked out.
Awesome. I got a question for you. So excluding USB webcams, because we all know how treacherous they are in this current state, do you have in mind any other parts of streaming that seem to be kind of stuck? Almost kind of like, when we were talking about capture cards, where you've got 1440p, 4K gaming, all of this high resolution stuff being promised, but yet some of our hardware is still very much lacking. I used to have a couple guys at work that would come up and, they were fellow gamers, console gamers, so not real gamers. They would always come up and go, dude, did you hear about the new PS5? They're talking about 4K, 8K, 120 frames per second. I'm like, okay, my GPU that I paid $1,000 for can barely even push 4K at high refresh rates. I very much doubt this console that's probably going to be priced in between $500 and $700 is going to be able to keep up. So do you have any other areas of streaming that you feel still have a lot of catching up to do?
I think there's kind of two things. The monitor mount and like modular cameras and lighting system mounts still have a ways to go in the streaming world. I know that Elgato's come up with this multi-mount system, but I think everybody in the gaming and the streaming world is really after like a super clean setup. And to me, when I hear super clean setup, I want to see maybe one pole coming off the desk and everything cleanly mounted with like a lane for cables and everything else where everything is just hidden. That doesn't happen with a multi-mount. You have multiple things clamped to your desk. You have a mic arm. You got a mic arm that actually I was looking at a while back. I'm running a mic arm up over this monitor mount, but like the whole mounting and organization side of the stream world is still vastly limited to me. So that's one thing. I've found a solution which a little bit out of the box, but I have a 3 monitor setup now for streaming, 2 of them for game, 1 for stream. And then when the stream is off, it's 3 for gaming. And what I did is I bought a 6 monitor mount so that the pole was a little bit taller that I mount everything on. And then I used the top monitor mount rails to C-clamp on my cameras and my ring lights, so there's nothing touching my desk. There's one pole that comes out of my desk in the center, and everything else is routed off of that. And I still think somebody can come up with a modular way of doing it where you have like one pole that comes off your desk or that's mounted on it, and then you can route everything off the other poles. And so I still think there's something else out there, and I don't think the multi-monitor mount or the multi-mount thing from Elgato is there yet. I don't know about the other streaming stuff that perhaps is limited. Can't think of any other real hardware that's limited other than, hey, if any case manufacturer companies are listening, please, for the love of God, figure out how we can get a streaming and a gaming PC into the same case.
That exists.
That would be. There's one. The Corsair. What is it? Obsidian 1000Ds.
Yeah, you've also got the. There's a Fantex case that has 2-in-1.
But they're mini. They're mini ATX, right?
Yeah, they're mini ITX for the secondary. Yeah.
How is it? I have a Corsair 750D and a Corsair 200D case, and I could probably figure out a way to screw holes in it and mount both of them in there if I figure it out right, where I mount one motherboard on the backside. But it's like, I feel like somebody with great, AutoCAD skills and a 3D printer. In fact, I contacted a guy on Twitter about this. I was going to perhaps make one, like have a custom one made to where I could fit both in one. But I don't know. I think that would be great. That would be huge for content creators. And if you price it at like, I don't know, $350 to $400, I think you could grab the world. I mean, you basically just reverse setup. You set up your game PC on one side, your stream PC on the other, and you're good to go.
Idea for Power GPU. Sell a case that has the streaming PC motherboard, CPU, and then a 1660 Super just in there already, and let the consumer customize their gaming PC parts. Like, because really right now, you don't need anything more than that. You need a quad-core CPU, 16 gigs of RAM, and a 1660 Ti, or even, can't you get away with the 1550 as well?
It's a 1650 Super.
1650 Super, and then the 1660.
Yeah, those are the 2 cheap ones.
You got the case that's already got the streaming PC in it. It's not necessarily a pre-built because the homies at Power GPU are building it. Holy shit, he's been doing fantastic lately.
Yeah, he's blown up.
God damn. Just from meeting, because I met him when I first saw you at TwitchCon last year. Yep. Just from then to now is like absolutely mind-blowing. It's so cool to see.
Yep.
How long have you known him?
I knew him from the year prior. So I met him at TwitchCon the previous year at the TC Helicon booth, the Go XLR booth. I met him there because what I was talking to the guys at TC Helicon about was getting a demo unit to see if I can sub out the Behringer setup that I had everybody set up on. And if I could get everybody switched over, like I could, for the people that I knew at the time, I could probably get a lot of people to convert to Go XLR. Well, sure enough, I've gotten a lot of people to convert to Go XLR. But I was very, very, very similar to NVENC. I was very doubtful of the Go XLR when it first came out. They didn't give me a demo unit. I ended up buying one straight up and started playing with it and realizing, what it's routing, where, and what's going on. And once I figured it out, I was like, oh, this is for anyone that's running dual PC. This thing is a game changer, even though the thing is not designed to run dual PCs, so to speak. Like it's clearly made for single PC streamers, but oh, by the way, it could also potentially do these small functions. You know what I mean? Right.
I know one of the things that still to this day doesn't necessarily bug me, but it's one of my reservations is that the recommendation is to have the Go XLR on your streaming PC, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense because your game, your audio, like your music and your VoIP, those all natively run on your gaming PC. It's like, sure, you can make them run off of your streaming PC, but every time you want to go over to your stream PC, you got to there's keyboard, mouse if you're going that route. Are you still switching between like having your USB switcher?
Switch. Okay. Yeah, the issue is I don't always want to have my stream PC on to run things. Even if everything is hooked up to my, I want to be able to switch back and forth. And I get more benefit when the Go XLR is hooked up to my stream PC when I'm streaming. But when I'm not streaming, I want it hooked up to my game PC. And so I switch them back and forth with a USB switch. But if they were to come out with a line out submix, I would convert to just having it on the game PC.
Okay.
If I could control line out volume independent of everything else, then I would switch it just to game PC.
And that seems like that could be a simple software thing, right? Instead of having to do anything with hardware?
I've talked with the former product manager about it. It's not as simple as we think.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. It has a submix, just not independent volume control. That's what I want. Supposedly in theory, there is USB clearance which allows for some things, but not what I would need in order to convert it, because I firmly believe what you're producing to your stream should be independent to what you hear, because what you hear affects the content that you're going to produce for stream, and what the content that is on the stream is hearing most definitely should be different than what you're hearing when you're producing it.
Right.
So,
and I know that you are like me to where you're very particular about what you want, but you have a good reasoning for wanting it the way that you want. And that's always kind of like the deciding factor for when I get into certain pieces of hardware or not, for sure.
Yep. That was the reason why I designed the first Behringer setup that I put up on YouTube. The way I designed it is because I wanted that very specific thing.
Yep. And that kind of paved the way as far as like how I learned how to mix the audio, because like I desired that same exact functionality. The only reason I have two Behringer 1204s is because I couldn't understand how to make what I wanted to work with a single mixer at the time. And I can now, but certainly not about to start taking shit apart just for the fun of it, you know?
Yeah.
Oh, man. All right. Next question. Also from... Wait, did this question not load? Hold on. Good old Notepad. This is what I need. I need an application that can automatically grab messages from chat and automatically update a document. Because right now, I'm using Streamlabs chatbot, which grabs the command and then outputs the submissions from chat to a CSV file. And then I use Notepad to read the CSV file. But every time that I want to get a new question, I have to close Notepad and then reopen it. Somebody fucking help me. Podcasting for 4 years.
Can't you use the queue system? Isn't there like a queue system that you can use?
That's actually a great queue. Queue for short for question. Does it record the data that they post in chat though?
Well, I think if you there's probably some way that you can have it read the text after in the settings of the queue function. There's usually like a queue function, like when you add to a queue, there may be, in theory, you could probably even use the structure of a song request bot as well. If there's like a manual song request bot, you could probably use something like that and just use the simple command and then have it capture anything after it.
Okay. I will actually look into that. I didn't think about using the song requests because that just grabs whatever they put in chat.
Yeah.
Okay. Good call. Is this, where did this one go? This question is for all three, aka all two. What is not appealing, a put off for you that you can get somewhere else on Voicemeeter? I use it and have no issues. Are you coming from a more professional, non-casual standard point of view, or is it just the bugs and layout? In return, what would you recommend over Voicemeeter Banana that acts the same way, a digital audio splitter? What are the top 3 put offs for Voicemeeter and 3 things that are better than another program?
Well, is voice? I think the question is more about like what's better than Voicemeeter, but you're also only limiting it to software. And software alone, there's not much better, which is why so many people use it. It does what it's supposed to do. It just doesn't do it as well as hardware does it, where it's always set in stone. And that's where issues come across. Whenever you have a software that is conflicting with Windows default things, or the order of which Windows loads drivers, particularly for audio, you run into issues a lot, because you're trying to have one audio device override other audio devices that are fighting for contention. And they fight for contention when you are opening browsers, when you are muting things, when you are opening up Steam. Every time you open a program that has access to an output or an input that can be used, it's going to fight. And it's going to be forced to load that particular driver in order. And it's great when it works, but when it doesn't work, it causes mayhem if you don't know how to use Voicemeeter in and out. It will cause mayhem. And if I remember correctly, and this is my ignorance, but Voicemeeter requires you to have exclusivity on, having all those options checked in order for it to overpower everything else. And that's a big issue for certain programs. Certain programs require exclusivity of other devices to be there. And when it tries to load Voicemeeter, it crashes out. Not to mention the latency side of things. So is there better software out there? There probably is. I don't know off the top of my head because I don't like using the software side of it. Does it work well for what it does? Yes. But at the end of the day, I'd still rather use hardware. That's my overall theme. Now you can use virtual audio cables. I used it a lot in early dual PC setups. I recommended virtual audio cable because you can turn it on and off. When you want to stream, you turn it on. When you don't want to stream, it just works when it's off. Voicemeeter, I don't know. I've seen a lot more issues with Voicemeeter than I think I would ever want to have for my own setup.
You pretty much answered for me within the first 5 seconds, and it's unfortunately there isn't something that is easily accessible, affordable, and plays well with others when it comes to a software solution like that. GoXLR was a trailblazer. I almost said street paver, which wouldn't have really made a sense, but trailblazer, where they brought an insane amount of control and features to a single unit that did not exist anywhere before. And the ability to be able to change virtual audio devices with a physical piece of hardware, maybe it existed out there
those are physical lines. It's like having a sound card.
Right.
They're not, but that's where, I think that's important, that those things are connected to that DSP, that's inside the GoXLR, and that's massive.
Right. And that's what you're paying for. I mean, you're paying for a lot of the hardware. People think it's just a thing with shiny lights and motorized faders, but there's actually a lot of smart shit that even I don't understand that's going on, behind the scenes. And an
inline. I mean, as I think about the GoXLR more and more, I think the strongest thing that it has, besides the preamps, is an inline EQ, an inline noise gate, and an inline compressor that goes to any source that you're sending your mic to. That's huge. That replaces a whole, and there's not really something out there that I've seen, unless you get triple pedal set up, that does all of that in a relatively small device, especially like a Go XLR Mini. The DBX is huge. If you run 3 pedals in series, that's 3 separate power cords and 3 separate little line cables that you would run for it. It just does a good job of that.
It really does. It really does. And again, for me, when it comes to, there are so many people out there that say, I use Voicemeeter, I have no problems. You are the exception, unfortunately. Like you said, the amount of people that I talk to that try to set Voicemeeter up, and like every time like Summit has an issue with audio, he's like, I gotta wait for Smokey to show up and fix it for me. Yep. Because like even like Summit, even when it's dumbed down to a certain extent, even Summit has a problem, understanding that stuff. And there is nothing that is better that could take the place of Voicemeeter. But I just hate recommending it because of the bugs, because of its inconsistency, because of its confusing UI. And I can't remember if it was you or Epos that said it. The knowledge and the skills that you gain from learning Voicemeter do not transfer over into anything else because of the way that it's set up and how unique it is.
And I know someone like Power GPU's main tech guy, Drunk Kev.
Yep.
He pretty much sets everybody up with Voicemeter, and he relabels everything as well. Like relabels every device, input and output, to be as intuitive as you can get. And I still look at it and I'm like, you think about the routing table on the Go XLR, and I'm like, man, all they have to do is make a routing tab and a mixing tab.
Yeah.
And if they had a routing tab that was like Stream PC mic, Stream PC alerts, Game PC game PC mic, and you just had this thing that just said, this is where it goes, and then you have a separate mixing tab, I might start recommending Voicemeter if it just looked like that. Instead, you have to think about, okay, well, this is the input and it's going to a playback, but playback also means output. And then you have your input, which is also now what called a recording device. And it's a little bit of Windows fault for doing this, but now an input is a recording device and you have to listen to it through a playback device, but then it's got to be repeated to it's just like, nobody gets that.
No.
Like, what do I want to listen to? I want to listen to my microphone. I want to listen to my game PC, and I want to listen to, and somebody needs to create like a walkthrough or UI that allows that all to happen.
One of the largest marks that the Elgato Wave missed was just having like a noise gate and a compressor. Yeah. And I know that they have, it's insane to me that they had the peak protection technology where it could record 2 different audio signal chains and then balance between the 2, but you couldn't do a noise gate and a compressor. At least a noise gate. Like
that's one of the biggest things I think they missed. And somebody's going to come out with $100 USB and Go XLR mic. I wouldn't be shocked if it's Samsung or Audio Technica. Mm-hmm. They're going to come out with this mic, and it's going to have a mini software package that programs a quick little chip on it, allows you to adjust your compressor and stuff on it, and let it go. And that's the day that happens is going to be the day that I'm like, yeah, just buy that one, and it'll be $129. Watch.
Yep.
And it's going to take over all the new streamer worlds.
Because I definitely think, and I didn't think this way before my podcast with Kick Tripod, but there is definitely still a market for USB microphones. There is 100%. A large portion of people that's
probably the biggest market.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Like, because I'm glad that Drunk Kev has found a niche market where he can help streamers and generate some income. But the fact that Voicemeter is the fix, that rubs me the wrong way in a lot of ways. It shouldn't be that difficult. There's still a lot of things that new streamers aren't going to understand, like noise gates and gain staging and compression and stuff. But GoXLR did a really, really good job of bringing those technologies to new people. And again, the routing table, one of the best ways that they could have done it. This is what I want to hear. This is where I want this audio to go. And of course, as somebody who's not really familiar, I'm sure that table was over encumbering to them, cumbersome. cucumbers. One of those.
Cucumbers.
So,
Pickles.
but huge step in the right direction, in my opinion.
Agree.
By the way, how much time do you have? Because I want to gauge how many more questions that I take.
Whatever.
Okay. Because I know you're on that California time, so you got lots of time before bedtime.
Yeah, but I'm like a 65-year-old man. I go to bed at like 9. So.
Oh, that's right. Okay, you're an early bedder. Next question is also from Cincher Beats. To circle back to the Stream Deck real quick, do you still use a foot pedal USB cure? I believe is what he was saying. If so, for what? And if you did, what did you use it for?
No, I've never used a foot pedal because I have a standing desk, so it'd be really tough to try to move the foot pedal around. I know people that have used the foot pedal for a lot of different things, but I've switched all of my stream controls over to the Stream Deck, and I have just the regular size Stream Deck, and I think I have everything I want on it so far. The Stream Deck's great. The only thing maybe well, no, it does everything I need it to. Like, I don't know. I was going to try to bitch about it, but like, I don't think that it has the functionality that I would be looking for, but the only thing I'd really be looking for is probably just the bigger size, the XL. Maybe I should have bought the XL instead of the regular size, but I have everything I need. And then the foot pedal thing is, I don't know. I take your opinion. My biggest thing I would probably use it for is like a push to talk.
Yep. I just went looking. I was like, I wonder how much the Stream Deck XLs are right now. They're still $250, which I love my Stream Decks to an extent. I found myself using them to the full extent when I first got them. And then as time went on, I kind of started tapering off using it so much.
Oh, really?
Because so you know me, I've got a lot of scenes and a lot of camera switches and a lot of stuff that happens. Trying to do that stuff with a Stream Deck does not work at all. If you're somebody who has like
lag,
yes, the lag, the mushy, unresponsive buttons, and then the constant like, what folder am I in? Let me go back and go into this. Where my macro boards they're all muscle memory. I can put my hand on it without looking at it and get where I want to go. There are so many things that are amazing. All of my macro boards, one scene, one key. Stream Deck, you can have as many scenes as you want, and at a quick couple seconds, you can get to that scene. Multi-action. There's nothing else in the ecosystem of streaming that does what multi-action does.
Yeah.
I use it every single stream for intros, for outros. I use it for the podcast. Amazing. I can't stand how many times it logs me out of Twitter and Twitch, and like my commands in Twitch don't work. It doesn't change when I go live on Twitter. I have that issue a lot, and could be user error, could be my computers.
I wonder if it's like a server authentication with both Twitter and Twitch.
And Twitch's API changes like every 60 days too. So I try not to hold it against it. But when I put so much faith into the Stream Deck and then things don't work as they should, I get a little frustrated.
Yeah. I only use it for scene switching. So for me, it's scene switching and Spotify. So Spotify basic buttons are on physical buttons, and then scene switching. So I don't use it for its complexities with multifunction or multi press or whatever. So in that case, that's the reason why I love it so much. But it is slow and mushy, which was actually, that's my complaint, is my K95 old macros that I used to have. I can hit 9 macros in the course of a second, and every single one of them is dead instant, and it hits perfectly. With the Stream Deck, I feel like there's like this lag, or you feel like you pressed the button, but maybe you didn't hit it all the way because they are so mushy, and it never triggered. So then I look like an asshole to myself. Nobody else knows that it's happening, but I know it's happening, and then I look like an asshole.
Son of a bitch. Happened again.
Yeah. Nobody knows. They can't see it.
Well, I've had that issue where I go to I will press the corner of a button because I'm clumsy, and then I'll keep talking, and then I'll look up and I'll realize, I'm still zoomed in on just my mouth for like the longest time ever.
Yeah.
Oh God. All right. Last question, because we're coming up and we just crested the 2-hour mark. I wanted to get into your Elgato. You know, you were talking about the multi-mount, and you got into the key light and stuff. And I wanted to kind of ask Epos about this as well, because I know that he is a lover of the key lights and the multi-mount and stuff. Do you have, and I already kind of know the answer to your question, do you have an issue recommending Elgato products? Because Elgato to the streaming world is kind of like Apple to technology in a way and it's not that their products aren't quality. It's just that they are priced in a certain way to target a certain market. And there's this vibe that I get from Elgato products sometimes. So I would love for you to explain your stance on how you feel kind of about those products.
Yeah, I think, Elgato makes some really good products. They entered the market with cap cards, right? And as far as I'm concerned, their cap cards are great. Now, I have an Elgato that I use for my camera, and then I have an AverMedia that I use for my gaming PC to stream PC capture. They came out with a Cam Link. I guess I don't necessarily agree with it because you could have always used a cap card. Interestingly enough, it sells well, and so how do you argue with that if they're making a decision? But I think it goes to something that Epos said a little bit earlier, which was when somebody decides to be a streamer or to get into the streaming world, there's this lifestyle of stuff they have to get. And the one thing that is clear is that when they are trying to find out what products they need to get, they can go to just Elgato's website and pretty much grab everything they need. Now, the moment that Elgato comes out with a webcam or a mirrorless cam that offers the same benefits as Sony or Canon, or maybe even a partner to license something from Sony because of all the people that chose it, they're going to capture the market too. And all they have to do is build something into that camera that has the output that they already have built into their cap card. And then they run simple USB cable from that or whatever they want to run in that instance, and they run that same capture. And they're going to capture those type of markets. And now that they're part of Corsair's part of them, all of that's going to come together as a streaming ecosystem. So, they're going to do well. I don't agree with the multi-mount. I don't agree with the key light because you can get photography lighting in any form factor, controllable, dimming, color, size, whatever you need for a tenth of the price. And so for that reason alone, I'll never agree with it. But again, if you're going to be a streamer and be that stream lifestyle, you have to have your key lights, and you have to have two of them because I need to light up the green screen that they have that's portable. I think that green screen thing, I applaud them for that. I mean, that's a game changer. Now, if they can come out with a bigger one, that'd be even better. But that's a great thing that they've come out with. So they are changing the world of streaming, and they're building that ecosystem that a new streamer or someone looking for upgrades can just simply go to their website and pretty much buy all of the accessories that they could possibly need in order to get up and running live with pretty solid quality.
Do you have a Micro Center near you at all? I don't remember seeing one.
No, we have like a Fry's. Fry's is like the equivalent.
Okay. So they at Micro Center here in Metro Detroit area, you walk in and the PC aspect of the store has grown significantly over the past couple of years. And then you go into a corner and you've got an Elgato like kiosk where it's multi-mount, key lights, capture cards, cam link, just decked out completely. It's literally like an Elgato showcase. And I look at that and I go, I mean, that's awesome. But at the same time, I don't like having these one-stop shops that it's like all you can eat buffet as far as streaming hardware goes. Because if you do look at how those things are priced compared to other products in the market, and it's up there. And the Keylight is, or not the Keylight, the Camlink is one of the products that I've seen to be quite problematic for a lot of people.
Really?
I actually, there's a lot of people that I follow that I see them on Twitter tagging Elgato all the time of just cameras not showing up, the device not showing up, freezing in the middle of the streams, which I haven't seen that as much. Well, I had a lot of issues with my internal Elgato capture card as well. But yeah, it's like, do you feel it's right or it's a good idea to have one company that delivers all of those products?
I'm kind of in the middle on this. For someone like me, I'm not going to go to one company and just always trust it. But if there's anything you can learn from Apple or Google, right, is that you become an Apple fanboy and all of a sudden you have a MacBook, you have an iPhone, you had an iPod at a point in time, you have, earpods or whatever they're called. You have, you have Apple TV, everything, because that ecosystem just functions. They link, right? And if you're a streamer and you learn the Elgato software or the functionalities of the Elgato things, it's really hard to switch. There's a stickiness factor of those things. When a Keylight, even though it's far expensive in my mind, and you control it, when you start controlling something with an app and it becomes part of your habit, then it's stuck on you. It's like my Hue lights that I have in here, like the Philips Hue lights.
Yeah.
Once you start using Alexa to control them and you're using apps to control them, you're relying on it. I mean, when the Wi-Fi goes out at my house, nothing works. Yeah. Everything is all connected to Wi-Fi. And when the Wi-Fi goes out, nothing works because I'm reliant on that. And that's what happens was once you get embedded in their ecosystem of relying on their product, you stick with them because that's what you know. And so for that perspective, from their perspective, yes, it's a good thing. And I think for a lot of people, it's a good thing. I think for a lot of streamers that have this view that they don't want to figure out a bunch of different things, but then they end up figuring out that thing anyway, just they're using the Elgato version of it.
Mm-hmm.
It seems easier to them. It seems less of a headache, and that's a big value sell for their brand.
Absolutely. Yeah, like you imagine if like GoXLR had products that encompassed all audio hardware, right? If they had it from start to finish, what kind of experience that would create for the end user? Probably a quite pleasant one.
Yeah.
All right, we have a couple more questions. A lot of these are non-streaming related or non-tech related. They're a little bit on the quicker side, but we'll do this last streaming question. What do you think matters more on a stream? Good audio, good video, or a good background? And I think when they meant good background, they meant like if you have a webcam without a green screen and you kind of have everything in the background going on.
Well, you're talking to a guy that is self-proclaimed audio whore. I'll leave a stream if I think somebody's mic quality is shit. So, but I won't necessarily leave a stream if their video quality is shit. If their video quality is shit or they're running too high of a resolution for their bit rate, I'll still stick around a lot of times. Mm-hmm. But if their audio is off, they have a peaking microphone, and too loud of peaking. I actually don't. If you're peaking all the time, I actually don't mind it. Weirdly enough, as long as like the mix is not too bad.
Yeah.
It's a weird. It's like Tyler 1 when Tyler 1 rages, or T Hump rages, and his mic peaks, but it's really not that loud of a peak like in the mix. I don't necessarily mind, but if it's fine, and then they talk a little bit loud, and then bam, it peaks louder than anything in the world, I'm out. I'll close your stream. I'll leave. So to me, it's audio quality first. Has to be good enough. Video quality, good enough. And I don't care what's in the background. I can have clothes all over the floor. I'm not usually looking in the background.
Bad audio hurts. Bad video does not. Like, bad audio can cause you physical pain if it sucks bad enough. Bad video, you just look at it and go, ooh, and that's it.
I usually just open up video stats. You know, I look at their stats and be like, okay, they're streaming at 4,000 bitrate, 1080p. They don't know this. Am I even going to say anything? Do I care? No, I don't know.
Yeah. Everyday battle.
Yeah.
I think the last part of your question, and this came from Bigfoot DK, it's not really relevant to the first two parts, because then you get into the whole conversation of, do you need a webcam to stream? And that's like one of the biggest conversations right now. There are certain advantages that you have when you do stream with a webcam, but it doesn't mean that it's right. For me, I wear my personality on the background of my camera. Like, I am on camera because the way that I look and the way that I act and animate is all part of me. There's a lot of people where they don't move much. They don't really elevate their voice. Their room is just a room in their house. Like, this is all part of me. There are a lot of parts of my stream that are a part of my personality, but not everybody emulates their stream that way. So it's definitely a case-by-case basis. I love looking at what people have in the background. I love looking at what they have that glows. I love if they have displays to try to see what displays they have. But again, me and Ernst completely answered this question opposite ends of the spectrum. You know, it really depends on what kind of person you are. And if you try to appease to one side, you will piss the other side off.
Yeah, I actually think I think it's morphed over the years too. Like, I think early Twitch outside of like a couple handful of early adopters on Twitch, like the big guys all had a webcam because their stream was tied to their personality or their face, like seeing their face every day. But I think as gameplay mattered more and more and more to large content creators that were tied to certain games, sometimes the face cam takes away from their gameplay when they're not animated. In fact, there's times where I actually think if I'm off cam, I probably put out better content than if I'm on cam. But my community is so used to seeing me on cam that it would be weird for them to not have a camera.
Sure.
And so I probably am a lot more animated without a camera because I know that there's dead time in my gameplay that I need to fill with being expressive. And when a camera is there, I don't necessarily realize that because they could see what's happening to my face as I'm, let's say, something's happening in a video game that's like make me tense or something like that. They can see it. Whereas if there's no cam, I probably have to say something. I have to react, make a noise, something like that to make them a part of that experience.
Absolutely. Yep. And I wanted to like piggyback off of that, but we've already had like the webcam, not webcam conversation so many times. So go back and check every single episode of Crocs and Hot Pockets. You'll find an answer eventually. All right. Next question, also from Bigfoot. When you're not live, who do you love to watch?
I think for me, Tim the Tatman is the best entertainer on Twitch, hands down. Has been since the day I joined Twitch. He can play any game and make it some of the best content you've ever seen. Watching his Fall Guys thing was incredible. The way he rages, when he says fuck, it's like no one else ever said it, and this is the first time everybody's ever heard that word. But it makes me audibly laugh out loud when I'm sitting in a room by myself. I think
it's a girthy fuck.
Yeah. It's just like one of those things where it's like, God, how are you so entertaining just doing something so normal? And then, of course, I watch a lot of my friends that I've known for a long time. So I rarely venture into new channels unless I come across a new game and I'm kind of watching the person that's the best at it or something like that. But I'll leave Tim at the top of that tower. But kind of shout out to Huskers and Symphony as well, who are former H1 buddies of mine who have now made it big recently, and I spend pretty good amount of time there as well.
The whole drama about the symphony cheating and all the clips that were generated and shit, that was hilarious.
Yeah.
Good fucking times. Right now I watch a good amount of middle-aged stream. When I'm not streaming, he's got a fantastic creative show that he's completely flipped how he's run his stream and implemented a lot of super creative things, and it's just been a joy to kind of watch recently. So been watching a lot of middle-aged stream. I've been watching a good amount of Game with Gray as she's been doing her Rogue Company with drops and stuff lately. Tim the Tatman, Summit's probably like, as far as entertainment, and it's not because I think that he's the best entertainer, but my humor is in line with Summit's humor, and his just general mannerisms and how the way that he is somebody that I find super fucking funny. So Tim highlights
very natural with him too.
Yes,
like it doesn't seem like he's putting on a show. At times, it feels like Tim is putting on a show. Summit feels like everything you get is real, natural, and just in the moment. You know.
Yep. Huge fan of Summit. Next question from Miss Kryptonite. Who's your favorite Muppet?
Is it weird that I never really watched the Muppets?
No, because I didn't really either.
Is Bert and Ernie? Are they Muppets? No, Sesame Street.
Yeah, it's Sesame Street. I don't think that's a Muppet.
It's a Muppet in my mind.
Beaker. Beaker's my number one.
Okay, yeah. I know Beaker.
But we'll go with Bert and Ernie. I like that. Next question from, I think it's Prophecist or Prophecist. Did you try the deluxe mac and cheese brats yet? This must have been aimed at Epos because I think this is one of Epos's followers that fucking submitted this. I have no idea what it's referring to.
I have no clue either, but it sounds great.
Yeah, I love cheesy brats.
I like bratwurst a lot. So.
Absolutely. And next question, second to last question from Cujo. What's your go-to snack when you're streaming?
I usually have a bag of nuts on my tabletop. My favorite are pistachios.
Ooh, the messiest of the nuts.
Yeah. Well, I get the ones that are already shelled and salted.
Oh, okay.
So it's just the nut. You just grab a handful.
Do they still have like the shell skin on them?
No, but I love it when you get like a super salty shell skin. Yeah. It's so good.
Salty nut skins, baby.
Yes.
I don't snack when I stream. I will get up and like grab something in the fridge and eat it while I'm out and about, but I don't really keep food in and around me while I'm streaming. I used to always have some sort of, I was big on almonds and cashews as far as streaming, but yeah, I try not to eat too much because it's like, okay, if I can't break from eating for 2 to 3 hours, then I have a problem. So I just try to keep the snacks away from the stream. Last question. This one comes from Bishop GP. If a gamer came to you and said that he had $500 to $1,000 to spend on to get into streaming, what products would you have them focus on for purchasing? We are assuming that they have the typical gamer gear.
I mean, I could eat up that whole 1,000 on two things. 500 to 1,000 on streaming gear. So I would say a webcam. I would say a mic and interface, whatever that looks like to you, and probably a dedicated light for streaming, and possibly another monitor. So depending on which ones you choose and balance the quality on all of those things, you could easily get all of that for $500. And then if you wanted to up the quality, which you can easily get it all the way to 1,000. I think you can get a Sony Alpha 5100, a cap card C920, a little light, and then another monitor for under 1,000 probably. If you wanted to switch out if you wanted to switch that out with like a really high end mic setup, you can go a RE320, which Nick or Knackers and I both have. Nice interface, whether it's Focusrite or Go XLR Mini, right? Get both of those things. C920 again. I don't know. You can mix it up to different things. And I think I said C920 earlier, but what I meant was a microphone like a ATR 2100 or something, a cheaper microphone. You could easily do all of that and produce really high content. Second or third monitor, whatever it is, can be $120 monitor, $80 monitor. You just want to get something that shows you a little dashboard while you're streaming.
Absolutely. Side note, I just learned today that the Behringer UMC 22 actually has Midas preamps in it.
Really?
It's a $60 to $70 USB interface that has 2 mic inputs and has Midas preamps. I didn't have time to confirm whether they were the same exact Midas preamps that the Go XLR had, but yeah, Behringer UMC 22.
Yeah, I just looked at it.
I had no idea. I found that out from a random YouTube video today. I'm like, oh shit, I have that, and I didn't even really know. Like, I'm a big fan of those Behringer Euphoria USB interfaces. I tend to recommend them over the Focusrite just because of the driver issues that the Focusrites have with Windows-based systems.
Yeah, and what's the newer brand?
Motu?
Motu. That's what I'm thinking. Yeah, that's another one that I've heard a lot of good things about. So.
Yep. So
yeah, interesting. I wonder if they are the same because I'm a marketing guy, and what they say here is USB audio interface with a professional grade Midas designed mic preamp.
Mm-hmm.
Which, yeah, hopefully that means the same thing.
I'm gonna have to do some digging. If you ever happen to find out about that, you let me know, okay?
Yeah. Interesting.
If they already have a gaming PC, getting into streaming nowadays isn't really that expensive, especially if they already happen to have a 2000 series NVIDIA graphics card, right?
Yeah.
So I like where you went. Webcam, the dual LED panel lighting that I have with arms, power supplies, temperature and brightness control lights, $120 for 2 LED panels. We can say a mic and a USB interface is anywhere from $200 to $300. Webcam's going to be $50. You've even got some money in there to throw a regular Stream Deck in there. You know, even the Stream Deck Mini automatically gives you the API integration with Twitch, Twitter, and Streamlabs. It gives you the multi-action. It gives you unlimited buttons, being able to folder different sources and scenes. A Stream Deck Mini's $100 bucks?
I have no clue.
Somewhere around there. So yeah, absolutely. So if they already have the gaming computer, if they don't, 1660 Ti, for the NVIDIA Turing architecture so that they can stream with NVENC, you can get really, really far. They're already going to have a headset. They've already got a keyboard and mouse. You've even got some cash in there to get an extra hard drive just for recording shit too. I mean, $1,000 actually gets you a lot.
Yeah, I would say if you were to limit that to like $300, then we might run into issues. But I think even then you can still, for $300 you can get a C920, you can get an ATR 2100 or 2005, or even I think you can get the Wave mic, right?
Yeah, Wave 1 is, I actually don't know, 100, and then the Wave 3 is 150.
Yeah, I mean, Samson Q2U or ATR 2100 would still be my recommendation, but those are between $50 and $100, and then you almost have $100 to spare on lighting. And
right.
You could probably you could probably even do a $300 version of the same thing I recommended the first time, which is decent mic, decent cam, decent lighting, and an extra monitor.
That's right. I forgot about the extra monitor, and you can get microphone boom arms for pretty decent as long as your mic isn't too heavy. You know, when you start to get into the heavier microphones like the Yeti or the EV, the 320 like we have, those cheaper mic arms cannot be great after a super long time just because of
Do you want to know something?
Yes.
I have a $30 mic arm, and I've had it for 5 years, and I've had the RE20 the whole time.
Oh
or
my God,
RE320 the whole time. And
You're
it works
the exception.
perfectly.
You're the exception.
I don't know why. I don't know why, but the springs still work. They still hold it up. If I like bring the microphone up, it holds. I don't know why. It just works.
That's actually really surprising.
Yeah. $30 on Amazon.
Oh man. Well, my dude, it's almost 2.5 hours, just like that.
Dude.
Whenever I sit down and talk with you guys, it always goes by so fucking fast. So what I want to do is just have you kind of talk about what you got going on in the streamer world. If you've got anything exciting that you want to talk about, any social media that you want to shout out, sell out, my friend.
I don't want to. I mean, I'm Ernst_Blofield on Twitch and Twitter. That's it, man. I don't know when I stream anymore. I try to do a couple times a week if I can. Try to get some. I've been doing a lot of IRL type streaming lately. I've been out on the golf course streaming while I'm out on the golf course from a cell phone.
That's been so cool. I've watched a couple of those.
Yeah, it's relaxing. It's good to get out. It's a nice way, during COVID to do something else. But then in terms of normal stream content, try to play a little bit of Rocket League here and there, some Valorant, some Warzone. Try to hop on some Fall Guys. There's a new golf game out. So kind of mixing it up. I used to be pretty much like an FPS type guy, first person shooter guy all the time. And now I've kind of got a ton of different stuff going on. So, but again, I used to hold a pretty constant schedule, and now as much as I try to hold that schedule, I try to do a lot of other stuff as well. And particularly since I've been working from home, I kind of want to break stuff up to where I'm not always, streaming as my outlet to get away, because it's in the same room that I've been working all day. So,
yep. I been in the same boat. I recently just had to remove all weekday evening streams from my schedule because something about recently, man, I could not be in my office working for 8-10 hours and then go have dinner and then come right back and just start all over again. It was just way too difficult. So I 100% understand that. EposVox is in here to shout himself out. There is a link in chat right under the guest command that have links to all of Epos' social media, his website, Discord, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram. If you guys are interested in following either EposVox or Ernst, be sure to check out that command in chat. Again, both of these guys I've looked up to for a really long time, and you should trust their word as much as you trust mine, if for some reason you trust mine. So again,
now I look up to you for your food content. Even though we're both chefs, I look up to your food content, and I'm like, keep telling myself I gotta get those smash burgers, because every time you post one of those damn things, I'm like, God, I need that right now.
Dude, that fucking grill that I got, the flat top grill, is one of the best cooking purchases that I have ever made. That and cheesesteaks. It does a fucking number. Yeah, I believe that. Cheesesteaks.
The best cheesesteaks are made on those grills.
100%. Sure. All right, my dude. Thank you so much. Chat.
Thank you.
You guys are all fucking awesome. Thank you very much for checking out this episode of the Crocs and Hot Pockets podcast. Myself, Middle Age Stream, and Bishop GP will be back for episode 128. And then we will have another special guest 2 weeks after that, which is yet to be announced. Ernst, you're the man. Thank you so much, dude.
Thank you, man. Thanks for having me.
Chat, you all have a fantastic fucking night. Thank you again for tuning in, and we'll see you guys in the very near future. Good night. Thank you very much for checking out this episode of the Crocs and Hot Pockets podcast. If you would like to catch the show live, it airs on Twitch on my channel at twitch.tv/knackers at 9 p.m. every single Sunday. If you would like to check out the most recent episode of the podcast, you can probably click this little box here. And if you feel like checking out some of our highlights, you can maybe click this little box down here. And maybe I'll even put a little thing for you to click right here. No? Bye.